Greetings one and all. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight once again. Thanks for taking time out. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. If you're a repeat visitor, please hit the bell icon and welcome back. I wanted to also note that we're asking for you to consider doing the $1 on Patreon to support our efforts. And I'll put a link beneath, but all of our other videos also have our Patreon link as well. And we could really use the support so we could do a better job for you and do a little bit more intensive work. So today I wanted to review in general what we're going to cover. The first is, the title I gave this is Carnegie Mellon, Wall Street Journal versus Tesla, Stanford, and Mercedes. The first part of our talk really focuses on what's going on between Carnegie Mellon, the Wall Street Journal, and Stanford Tesla on either side. The next segment we're going to cover is some interesting developments relative to comments made by executives at Daimler Mercedes about kind of what's going on in the electric market and what the future might look like. And then the final piece of what I wanted to cover is some thoughts regarding the ramp on the ramp on the Model 3 and kind of where we are and what does the future look like. So the first thing I wanted to cover is, I want to say, the war between the Wall Street Journal / Carnegie Mellon and Stanford / Tesla. Now, if you'll all recall, I believe it was in April of this year, that there was a story on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that the fact that Tesla was unable to find enough parking both at headquarters and at the Tesla main factory for its employees. And they sort of showed photos of the craziness and all of the difficulty it was to get a parking space. Now, I thought this was truly amazing to see, because it's the first time that I'd seen the Wall Street Journal cover parking problems for any company in 40 years of reading the newspaper, and I wondered why you could have this happening. And I then thought that was weird, because the next thing that popped up was in May of this year, and then again, I believe in July, after Elon Musk announced the truck, there was a gentleman of Indian descent who's an assistant professor at Carnegie Mellon, and he ran a bunch of statistics and basically indicated that there's no way that the Tesla truck would work. And I was really shocked, because he was allowed 2 or 3 different opportunities to present data that suggested that the Tesla truck was not going to work. The main components of this data was focused on the fact that if you look at what it costs for batteries, the truck Tesla was describing would not only cost more in batteries than what Tesla was going to charge, but it also had the additional problem that was presented that it's not going to work, because when you put all those batteries at that weight in a truck, you're screwed. It's not going to work. So he was given the opportunity to make this case 2 or 3 times. And then subsequent to that, as you saw in my video, and I'll probably put a link to it, there was another problem listed by Jim Chanos about problems Tesla is having and why the company isn't worth anything and is going out of business. So between CNBC, the folks at Carnegie Mellon, and the folks at the Wall Street Journal, there's been a constant drumbeat of why Tesla's going out of business. It doesn't work. Their truck isn't going to work, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I thought it was really interesting. I don't know if you guys noticed, but since the truck has come out, the folks at the Wall Street Journal and Carnegie Mellon don't have anything to say about the viability of the truck. Let's also include all the new video that's coming out with the truck operating successfully. And again, there is no discussion about what Tesla cannot do with its trucks, because it's becoming blatantly obvious that these guys are too far ahead of everybody else. In fact, a sidebar note, which will be one of the things I think we'll cover, is this week it was announced that there's a place called the Port of Oakland, which is the port in Oakland that carries major freight coming from mostly Asia, but all over the world. They just announced that they have, I guess, a BYD truck that they're testing right now. They're going to pay $250,000 for it, and it can go 100 miles. And because they only they only have an opportunity to, thanks for the comment, ZTech Labs. I'd love to know your first name so I can respond on other than your URL. I wanted to note that in the case of Oakland, they're paying $250,000 for a truck that goes 100 miles. The distance isn't a big deal because they're only moving containers within the port. So it's basically from a ship, a truck pulls that container over to the rail yard so that those can go other places, or it's short distances. So the 100 miles isn't a big deal. So with that as a model, if you think about it, if Tesla is offering a truck, the market is saying that a semi-truck that goes 100 miles is worth $250,000. In the case of Tesla, they have a truck that goes 300 miles and one that goes 500 miles. So what all you guys will remember is I said that I thought the semi was worth somewhere in the $400,000 to $500,000 range. And based on what competitors are offering and the market is willing to pay, Tesla's charging under $200K for something that the market might be willing to pay $400,000 to $500,000 for. And I just think that's an amazing value and illustrates why I think this Tesla's awesome, the truck is awesome, etc. So in my listing, I said Tesla slash, it was Tesla slash Stanford versus Carnegie slash the Wall Street Journal. What also came out this week was the fact that the Koch brothers, with the help of CNBC and the Wall Street Journal, have worked really hard to put out as many ugly stories and include people like Bob Lutz, etc., to articulate why Tesla will not and does not work and won't work in the future and is just going to go out of business. It also was admitted that big oil, in essence, in the form of the Koch brothers, are pumping $10 million a year to help facilitate success not happening for Tesla. So I just think this is fascinating to watch. As you know from what happened with Apple and the iPhone relative to competitors that pre-existed in the MP3 world, we're sort of seeing the same thing happen. And this is an interesting segue over to our discussion of Daimler-Benz. So I have a quote that I'm probably going to start playing a lot on my site that I'm blown away by. There's a gentleman who was up for the CEO-ship of Daimler-Benz. I believe his last name is Bernard. And in January 17th of last year, 2017, he did an article in Der Spiegel. And what he pointed out was that in the first part of the article, it described the fact that Daimler created an electric vehicle called the Vito, which was a small commercial electric van. They made 1,000 of them in addition to creating in essence, a small gigafactory, is a small battery plant in a place called Kamenz. And basically, after losing money for 5 years, they shut it down. Now, I think that part of the reason they broke up with Tesla was they thought this plant might work, or their plans might work relative to producing batteries. But what they found was that because they didn't have the back-end research, the cost of those batteries and the production of those vehicles as a result was way out of line with what they could buy in the marketplace. So currently Daimler's plan is they bought half of SK Innovation in Korea, and they'll provide the battery packs until Daimler's able to build a new $540 million, 4 times the size battery pack facility in Kamenz. And what they've articulated is that they'll just buy the cells from elsewhere and then bring those cells and hook them up to the rest of it being Daimler-Benz Mercedes. Now, this is so the quote that was made that I thought was amazing was he pointed out is that if you're early to the market, you lose your shirt. If you're late to the market, you lose the whole market. So even though Daimler's lost, I believe, somewhere between $1 and $2 billion pursuing electric over the last 7 to 10 years, they have no choice. They have to keep moving forward to try to get a win because of the competitive threat that electric is, and Tesla's the embodiment of that. And there's still time for them to sort of build capacity and come after having a place in the electric world. In addition to this, we've covered the fact that there's a supply chain challenge that Tesla or Daimler-Benz is experiencing, which is that currently they have to keep doing development of ICE vehicles And so they have R&D dollars still going into that development to stay competitive with the current marketplace. At the same time, they're having to leverage their suppliers to start creating and building an electric infrastructure. So that puts them in a cost situation that's pretty intense. Now, you could argue, hey, Tesla might work, whatever. But one of the big drivers for this is it turns out that China is the largest EV market in the world. And the Chinese are doing all kinds of mandates of how EV companies have to respond or car companies have to respond in terms of the percentage of their fleet if they want to sell in China. And I'm really impressed because even GM is showing signs of life in electric when it comes to servicing Chinese consumers in ways I think that they're not showing life signs in the United States. Daimler also has another problem, which you all probably read about, which is they just had 10% acquired by Geely, a large Chinese entity. And I'm intrigued by how that's going to work out because Geely is not currently a Daimler partner in China, but because of the ownership stake they now have, I think Daimler may have to get rid of their old partner and bring Geely in as a partner or suffer whatever consequences come from having your largest shareholder not happy with what you're doing. So again, I keeping an eye on Daimler-Benz on what they're up to because they're an important and they're huge and important company around the world, etc. The final comment that I was impressed by the Der Spiegel commentary from the CEO of the trucks for Daimler before he left the company was that Daimler has put out what I think are $250,000 Class 7 and 6 trucks that are on the market in the count of 150 units around the world, and they're coming out with a 40 to 50,000 pound vehicle, fully loaded, that's in the Class 7 capacity, and that too is in test mode because they can't afford to put a bunch of them on the street given what the battery costs are and all the other costs associated with keeping them out there. So in general, I just think Daimler is one of the best of breeds. Now, all of you can argue with me because the I-Pace from Jaguar is now out and it's showing performance signs that suggest that it's better or as fast as the Model X. The one thing I haven't seen from Jaguar is an infrastructure to charge that thing, even though, yes, it does perform. So I think there's a combination of the infrastructure that goes with it, along with looks and performance of the vehicle that you have on the street. So congratulations to having that early prototype out and expanding the number of entities that are able to offer viable electric vehicles. The final segment I want to cover today is I've been getting questions about the ramp of the Model 3 and where I think things are going and how long before we get 10,000 a month. I explained that one of the problems I have is I love to eat. I love good food, as you've seen from several of my videos. And I just wanted to point out that I really believe that where we are right now is that we're getting a ramp on vehicles, but you'll also notice that other than display models around the world, you're only seeing mostly California deliveries. I believe because we're at the 500 unit count, we're basically at 5,200 vehicles produced since we started production in the last of December. And yes, I think the ramp speed is going to increase, but I also think that there are things that need to be fixed on that car, and Tesla is figuring out what they are from interacting with all of the users like yourself and myself that are giving commentary on changes that need to be made. And please, Tesla, I know it's cool to be able to open up the glove box from the screen, but I would love to just see a stupid olden days latch on there, because I just don't see any huge latch change that'll happen in the future technology-wise that really matters. So as a result, take out some of the gee whiz and just give me a latch so I can open and close the glove box, especially during accidents, without any drama and not having to rely on the screen. I would also like to add on my wish list that I think it's important that one be able to use the Wi-Fi in the car to be able to control functions of the screen. That way people in the rear seat can handle things from there. And you also have the ability to manage the vehicle even if you're outside of the car in terms of maybe air conditioning or heat or other things that you want to do in there without having to be in the car to use the touchscreen to do so. The one other feature I'm hoping for, there is yeah, I would agree. I don't see them hitting 2,500 by the end of the month either. I think we're lucky to get 1,000, maybe 1,500. So I kind of don't think it's a bad thing that the ramp is slow, because it gives them a chance to fix everything that showed up as a problem as users have it in hand. Because when we're dealing with a Daimler or GM or other companies, you generally see the vehicle on the road for at least 6 months to a year in hard testing in large numbers before you see the giant scale up. And so I agree that they're going to push hard to get it done, but even if they don't, those of you who currently have your Model 3, etc., all of your feedback is being baked in. And one example of baked in that I learned is that I have kind of a mentee who spent time at the factory, spent time with the CTO in class, etc., and he's really jumped hard into the fact that Tesla can actually put a brand new car, every aspect of it, on the street in 6 weeks because they're vertically integrated. So if you identify things that you think are important that should be made as changes, don't be surprised to see those changes being baked into the vehicle quickly, and the net result is that you have a better car that's hitting the streets for everybody else that's buying, and then you can retrofit the vehicles that are already on the street. So that's kind of what I think about with production. So kind of my final segment here, I just wanted to cover the fact that I want to thank all of you for joining us on a regular basis to learn more about what's going on with Tesla, etc. One of the things I'm sort of diving into right now, but I'm wanting to get more confirmation from sort of indirect contacts in the factory, is that there's an issue that's lurking, which is that when you look at the performance specs on the battery for Tesla and the different types of vehicles being produced, it was implied that just like other manufacturers, Tesla would simply make a battery and have the same battery coming off the line in thousands and thousands of copies as much as possible over time. But what it's looking more like now, based on the nature of the vehicles being presented, is that Tesla has multiple battery designs that they're putting in different types of vehicle coming out of the Gigafactory, which I guess shouldn't be a shock. So what this also illustrates is the fact that what a lot of people, including GM, has been suggesting is that, hey, batteries are a commodity just like, airbags or tires or other parts of a car. What this does suggest is that having your own battery factory allows it to be a competitive advantage, because you can vary certain aspects of the battery depending on the application of how the vehicle might be used. And so I think there are a lot of people who thought that forget about battery production, it's stupid to get into it, that are now starting to think, well, wait a second here, we kind of don't want to get into batteries because it's well done in Korea, etc. Yes, I would agree. The battery chemistries that are delivered by Tesla are unique, and they're getting fantastic results from them that put them in a completely different category versus others. A stupid comment that comes to mind in that regard is the fact that you could, in theory, buy a Tesla truck, put your own brand on the front, and then ship it to other entities for double the price, and they'd be happy to pay, because I think there's a shortage of supply out the gate because the vehicle is so terrific, and competitors are unable to keep up with it. So I think it's an interesting situation, everything that is going on as I described. There is definitely a war between big oil, etc., against Tesla, and there is no shame in them using the Wall Street Journal, CNBC, etc., to cast aspersions and just evil and ugliness, but not admit who's paying the bill for this stuff, I think is ridiculous. So I also want to say shame on Rupert Murdoch, because when he bought the Wall Street Journal, he agreed to maintain journalistic ethics that I don't see going on. So, at any rate, we're at about our 20-minute zone for this week. Finally, I think we've got this landscape figured out. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more just interesting. I just expect to see a lot more interesting results coming from what Tesla is doing and not doing. The graph that I wanted to make that you're not seeing is what I want to say the step in terms of how the Semi is running. The Semi initially came out and, it was a mule, and then we saw the first vehicle, and now we're starting to see it run on the freeway. Sort of the next step that everyone's waiting for is to see that truck pulling a trailer full of parts, into the Sierra Mountains is sort of our next, how does it handle real weight behind it situation. And once we get past that threshold, it's simply getting the factory built and allowing customers to get a hold of them. Hey, thanks for the camera props. I appreciate it. This is Greg again for Tesla Fan Insight. Please remember to like and subscribe once again. It'd be helpful if you throw out questions, and I'll be happy to answer it on our page beneath. Please, again, like and subscribe, hit the bell icon. Look forward to covering Tesla as we sort of expand. I also think that people like you guys are part of the solution that Tesla is offering, because the degree to which you're commenting on things that should be changed helps the vehicle to improve, to better meet customer needs. But also there's a factor that, they're still under pressure by a lot of entities that are very large that want to see them fail. So if folks like yourself stay in the mix and contributing ideas that can help facilitate the success of everything that they're doing, I think it's helpful for all of us to change the planet. Wanted to, again, thank you for joining us. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Tschüss, German, mach's gut. Au revoir, French, Lahitraot, Choda, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Arabic, Wa Goodman, Jamaican Patois. And look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. And some of you, I just want to last one note. Some of you guys saying GM should go out of business and all that stuff. They do deserve to go out of business. I just want to let you know that I'm hoping they don't go out of business, because there are a lot of people who need those jobs. And even if management is being pardon the expression, being unpleasant about it, I believe those people deserve a chance to keep their jobs, even if management is not doing things that represent the best interests of those individuals that are working there. So, any rate, once again, thanks for taking time out. Look forward to our conversation next week, and have a great day. And please pose your questions, because oftentimes we pick those up in our dialogue in terms of what we cover. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.